Hello, I'm Alex. I'm from Cornersmith. We have a cafe and a cooking school in Sydney, and we have a new book. It's called Use It All, and it's about to be released. My colleague and co-author Jamie Edwards and I wrote this book together. She is here today, but unfortunately due to social distancing she can't be on screen with me. So she is going to be the cameraman and also the interviewer today. So I'm just going to get her to come in and say hello.
Hello everyone.
So this is our new book. It's called Use It All. We wrote this, we've been working on this over the last 12 months and finished it off just as we went into lockdown. We're really excited about this book. It's a little bit different from the other Cornersmith books. It's less heavy on preserving and the kind of food that we eat at the cafe and very domestic focused. We've taken the ethos of Cornersmith and tried to put that in a real home setting to make it so much easier for people. I guess this book is a sustainable guide for busy people, and what we wanted to get across was that how important it is to eat seasonally, how to shop well, how to use everything that you've got, how to reduce food waste, and basically to be more resourceful in the kitchens as well. We think it's a really important book, we think it's a really timely book. We all need to make better decisions, and we feel like this book has a lot of the answers for you. Jamie and I have been cooking together for, I don't know, probably 10 or 15 years now, and have had many conversations about how to make really good sustainable decisions in our homes and at work as well, and this is the outcome of all of those conversations. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the book and how we have decided to set it up, and then I'm going to do some demos to explain, to kind of get across the ethos that is throughout the whole book as well.
So I'm just going to jump in.
Jump in. The mystery voice.
The voice from behind the camera. We broke the book down into what we kind of envisioned to be typical shops. So 8 chapters, 8 baskets, 8 typical shops featuring seasonal fruit and veg, a little bit of protein, Pantry Staples, and it was really an effort to focus on one ingredient at a time so you can get the most of those ingredients.
Yeah. And I think what we wanted to do is show people that you don't need to buy heaps and heaps of stuff. Neither Jamie or I have a sort of aspirational pantry or fridge. It's actually surprisingly there, which our teenagers can attest to. But what is in there is all the things that you need to cover a whole lot of meals. And once you start to understand ingredients really well, you really know how to turn that into a lot of different things. So I think it's kind of being creative in the kitchen as well.
Yeah.
We want you to think about being sustainable from the time that you hit the shops to then when you take everything home, to how you're cooking, and then also how you're disposing of leftover food as well. So this book kind of takes you through the whole process. There is breakfast, there's lunch, there's dinner, there's quick preserving tips, there's lots of snacks, and predominantly there's also, the thing that I think people will find really interesting in the book is the waste hacks, which are lots of ideas of how to use up, tired fruits and vegetables, or the tops or bottoms of things that people maybe didn't even realise they could eat, like celery leaves or leek tops, or
keep things from hitting the bin or even the compost.
That are still, either full of flavour or surprisingly delicious once you know how to cook with them.
So the celery is a pretty great example of the kind of thing we were trying to do with all of our ingredients.
Absolutely.
Because people generally try and avoid buying that big celery because they don't really know what to do with it. So we're going to just tackle it. So that's
we really are. And in each of the shopping baskets, in each of the chapters, there's always one big whole ingredient. So today I'm going to talk to you about the celery, but in another chapter we might talk to you about the whole chicken, or we might talk to you about the whole silver beet, or a whole cabbage. And these are the vegetables that people see at the supermarket. If you don't quite know what you're doing, you're quite intimidated, so perhaps you go for a portioned option, which is wrapped in plastic. And I think buying whole ingredients allows you, it saves you money basically because it's so much cheaper.
Always cheaper.
You're reducing your plastic intake,
Consumption,
consumption. And I think it makes you be a better cook because you have to figure out how to use that whole thing.
Yeah.
Jamie permanently has a whole cabbage in her fridge.
Absolutely.
And the amount of meals she can turn that into is something to be very proud of. So I guess that's what we want to get into your head, is that to stop buying vegetables that are wrapped in plastic. What you do buy is a thoughtful purchase, and then you're going to know how to use every single part of that without anything ending up in the bin. So should we jump into the celery, Jamie?
Let's deal with that celery.
Okay, so this book not only teaches you how to cook stuff, but we also wanted you to kind of fall in love with ingredients as well. So we cover a bit of history of the book, a little bit of romance around the fruits and vegetables, which we are both obsessed with.
A little bit of mythology.
A little bit of mythology.
Can we share what was so great about why the celery was so beloved in a medieval kitchen, for instance?
So the celery, the beloved celery, actually in medieval times, I believe, was actually considered an aphrodisiac.
Ooh la la.
So on the medieval kitchen table, perhaps, or maybe the feasts, was always a lust-inducing celery soup. So we don't have that recipe in the book, but by all means, give that a shot.
So the aphrodisiac celery, that's something to keep in mind.
Beyond that, we took to cover nutrition, so that you can start making decisions about the vegetables and fruits and cheeses and nuts that you're buying on a nutritional value as well. And then we want you to really understand how to store fruit and vegetables properly. So many people buy stuff, shove it in the fridge, and hope that the fridge is going to look after it, which is not always the case. So we go through each ingredient and explain to you the best way to store stuff.
Because I mean, that part of the thing that would make somebody resist buying a whole celery is they don't know how to use it all up, and if it's going to last 2 weeks.
Yeah, exactly. And so, if you store something properly, it will last 2 weeks. So it's still crunchy and fresh and delicious. So let's talk about storage first. Hopefully you can see what I am doing here. But celery is a giant. There's a lot of them, unless you're buying a couple of stalks wrapped in plastic, which you're going to avoid doing. So breaking down a celery is really easy, much easier than breaking down a chook. There is 3 parts of the celery. We have the base, we have the stalks, which are the hero part, and then a huge portion of it is actually the leaves as well. So we'll start off by taking the base off. Now the base does not need to go into the bin or the compost. It is full of celery flavour in there. Our advice is to use that the next time you're making stocks. It's really, just give it a quick rinse. You can just keep it in the fridge, in a container, in a bag, whatever, and it will last for a good week or 2. You could also freeze that. So if you're collecting ingredients to make a stock, hang on to that one. Really, really good. Put that to the side. Next we have the stalks. Now the stalks are the most important part. These are amazing for crudités. They end up in my children's lunchboxes all the time. Most people use celeries for the base of stuff. So in spaghetti bolognese, in the base of a soup. They're not really used that often as an individual hero item. But the flavour is amazing. It is salty and crunchy and fresh and goes so well with lots of other ingredients. So, so good in a potato salad, delicious with any kind of creamy food. So whether that's a nut butter or whether that's cheeses as well, great with dips. Celery soup, so there's so many delicious things. To store these, I guess what most people do is buy the celery, use a little bit of it for spaghetti bolognese, and then pop the rest into the fridge, and it gets very tired and limp very quickly.
And they don't know what to do with it anyway.
They don't know what to do with it anyway, so they just pretend it's not happening. So the best way to store it, now you could just wrap this in a beeswax wrap like that and pop it in the fridge, and I reckon you're going to get at least a week out of it. If that still doesn't feel like long enough for you, what I want to show you how to do is store it for a 2-week period, and it will stay very crunchy and fresh. What you need to do is get a container, whatever you have. This is just a plastic Tupperware container. You could use a glass one as well. And cut your celery down so it's the same size as the container. I'm going to go a bit of this, I reckon. If you had a giant bunch, you might need 2 containers. Now in the bottom, you're going to put some water. So you just want a small amount of water, probably like not even a centimetre in the bottom.
But you're covering the whole base.
Covering the base of
Yep.
it, yeah. And that's going to keep it stopping it from drying out, and it also keeps it crunchy and fresh.
Okay. Would you replace that water?
Yes, please do not leave that water for up to 2 weeks because it will get a little smelly. So you can see how well that fits inside there, like that. So I would say probably every 2 to 3 days, you could push it to 4 if you forgot about it, to change that water out. So just drain it out, add some new water, and keep it fresh. This really does work. So your 2 options are in the beeswax wrap, in the fridge, or if you want a little longer time, you're going to store it in a container with a small amount of water, which you're going to change. That goes straight into the fridge. Very, very easy. Genius. Now we've got the leaves. That is a huge bunch, like bigger than a bunch of parsley.
Yeah.
That most people chop that straight into the compost. Celery leaves are full of flavour. Again, they are salty and crunchy and fresh and will really lighten a dish. So we use celery leaves in lots of different ways. Again, you could put it through a green salad instead of parsley. So if I've got celery in the fridge, I do not buy any other herbs. I just use this up instead. Through a potato salad, in a tabbouleh. Jamie uses it a lot in fermentation.
Yes.
To flavour stuff.
So in a sauerkraut, I would, if I've got a bunch of celery, which I've stored, like Alex has shown you today, and I'm also making a sauerkraut, particularly a kitchen scrap sauerkraut, I will definitely chop up the leaves and put them in through the kraut.
Delicious. When I do, if you're pickling something, so if you were pickling anything really, the flavour of celery is really delicious in pickling. So a lot of traditional recipes use celery seeds, but you could just use celery leaves as well. So, and then you could also just finely dice it and use it to garnish too. So 2 options with this. One is if you are very committed, you can pick all the leaves and pop them into a container, and then you would just put something like a damp chucks or a little cloth or even a damp paper towel on top like that, pop the lid on, and then that gets stored in the fridge as well.
Nice.
That will last for a very long time. That's a good thing for sturdy leaves like parsley as well.
What if you're less committed?
If you're less committed,
more like me.
If you're the lazy waste warrior, the other option is to not worry about the picking because that does take a little time. Gather it all up in a bunch. I would give it a wash beforehand just because it does get a bit gritty. And you are going to wrap this up as tightly as you can. I'm going to suggest that you take your memory back to swaddling a baby. Yep, I know it was a long time ago, but that is the vibe. Or a kebab. Maybe a cigar? Don't know. Anyway, that is a nice tight wrap. That could go into a calico bag, that could go into a plastic bag, and that will store for what, a week? Yep. Maybe even a little longer in the fridge. You've got that one that's been hanging around for a while. So that is very good, and then you will just pull it out as needed. Please re-wrap things well. It takes 30 seconds. So what we have here is a whole lot of storage that will fit very easily into your fridge, so your fridge is not insane with celery kind of half coming out of it. And it allows, you've got seasoning stuff, you've got the heroes there, and then you've got something for your stocks and soups later.
It looks a lot more manageable than just the big bunch of celery. It kind of feels like I can approach each one, but I know what I'm going to do with that.
I know what I'm going to do with that one. Yeah. So that is your storage, very important. Please investigate all vegetables and how to store them properly. It will save you a lot of money and it stops you throwing food in the bin. It also keeps everything fresh and crunchy, which means it tastes better and the nutrition is better as well. So then I want to show you what to do with all the parts of the celery as well. If you've made spaghetti bolognese, you've used what, a quarter, a third, a half, depending on the batch that you're making. A really good thing to do with the leftovers, maybe while you're stirring your bolognese, don't wait for 3 more days, is to quick pickle it. Pickling and celery are a perfect match. It's the crunchiness, it's fresh, it's green, you get really good flavour in the celery as well, because celery absorbs flavour particularly well. To quick pickle something, it is really, really easy. And if you do this while your celery is still alive and fresh, it's going to mean that your pickles are a lot crunchier as well. So don't leave this till the last 2 weeks, to the last few days of your 2 weeks. Do this sooner. Quick pickling means you do not need to sterilise your jars. You do not need to preserve properly. You don't need to heat process. You are filling up a container with fresh crunchy vegetables, with a vinegar brine, and you're popping it into the fridge. So it's honestly a 5-minute job. I have sliced up this celery into smaller sticks because the sticks on that celery are pretty fat. So it would take too long for the vinegar to absorb inside the vegetable and actually pickle
it. For a quick pickle,
smaller, a thinner
cup.
Yeah, absolutely. Your vinegar brine is really easy to make. You don't even need to turn the stove on. 1 cup of boiling water, just the kettle. 1 cup of vinegar. I've got apple cider vinegar here.
Yeah.
You could also use white wine vinegar and I think rice wine vinegar
Would be
really
nice.
nice.
With a bit of ginger or something to
Yeah, a bit of
flavour.
ginger, a bit of chili if you wanted to kind of go more into the Asian flavours. So we've got the 1 cup of vinegar, 1 cup of boiling water, probably about 1/3 of a cup of sugar, just white sugar or caster sugar, and then a teaspoon or 2 of salt, depending on how salty you like stuff. That's it. Whisk it together until everything is dissolved. In your jar or your container, pickling in something like this would be really good as well.
Okay.
I have added a little bit of flavour. I'd suggest just using what you have in the garden, in the fridge, wherever, in the spice cabinet. So for the celery, I've done some peppercorns, 1 garlic clove and some bay leaves. Some lemon rind or a slice of lemon would be really nice in there as well. Dill would be nice too.
Fresh herbs? Could you use fresh
Yeah,
herbs?
fresh herbs would be fine. The bottom of a coriander, like the coriander roots, really whatever you've got. But stay in those nice fresh flavours, I reckon. This is not where we're going to put a clove or star anise.
Okay.
So we're just completely submerging the celery under the vinegar brine. Make sure there's no pieces that aren't submerged because that's where it could discolour. And then just have a little look, make sure there's no giant big gaps that don't have any brine in it. And really that's it, the lid goes on. You pop that into the fridge. That's it, you saw how easy that was.
That is ridiculously easy. How long until I can eat that?
Eat it? I mean, really, you can eat it whenever you like. We're not waiting. This is not like preserving and letting things sit for 6 months and develop flavour and get really delicious. This is light and fresh and yummy, but lightly pickled. So I would not eat it on the same day because otherwise it's just celery and vinegar.
Yeah.
It would still be pretty good. 3 days, a week, perhaps. And then I think it would last in your fridge for definitely more than a month.
That's so good.
I'm going to say 2 months even. So you've bought your celery, you've made whatever dish that you're making, a little bit that's left over is pickled. So next week, you maybe don't buy celery.
Yeah.
You've got some pickled celery, that can go through your salads. And to be honest, if you wanted to use a little bit of pickled celery in the base of a soup or your bolognese, it would be absolutely fine. It will be a little bit more acid, but all that kind of cooking actually likes a little bit of acid.
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to use this in your cooking as well, particularly delicious in stir fries.
And also the brine mixed with some olive oil makes a very good dressing.
Amazing dressing. Please don't throw that away. Maybe just add some mustard and a little bit of oil. Or your other option would be to reheat it and use it to quick pickle something else. So if you had half a bunch of radishes next week, you could use that same pickling brine. That pickling brine will not last for 10 years. Just a couple of times you can use it, then use it as a dressing and make another one. Cool. So we have stored things well. We have made a very delicious quick pickle. That pickling brine can be used for any vegetables, not just for celery.
Perfect.
So off you go. Thinly sliced carrots, onion, whatever you want. Just change the flavours.
Okay.
Next, I wanted to talk to you about the leaves.
Yes.
So
there were a lot of them.
there was a lot of them, and I know I was like, garnish them and make salads, but there's still a lot of them. So I have come up with a pesto recipe, celery leaf pesto.
And see, use it all for every single pesto recipe you could ever imagine. Alex
is obsessed.
Completely become the queen of all things green.
Yes, it's true.
And pesto.
Yes, pesto is one of them. So what we have over here is, I don't know if you can see inside there. Can you see that? Very delicious. It smells amazing. It's a shame you can't smell through screens. But we have 1 to 2 cups of celery leaves. Amp it up if you've got 4 cups, just double it. We've got 2 garlic cloves.
Yeah.
We've got some nuts. I did peanuts today because that's what we had in the pantry. You could also do cashews, you could do macadamias, you could do pine nuts, you could do almonds.
We feature the peanut in use it all as well.
Very fond of the peanut. So it's kept everything really kind of lighter and fresher than probably a traditional basil pesto. You can put Parmesan cheese in here as well. You could put a bit of lemon rind. You could put some chili. Kind of, it's the base.
Yeah.
That has been blended up into a paste. I kind of like mine a little bit chunky. Feel free to go further if you want to as well. So once you've blitzed everything and tasted it, a pinch of salt as well, then you're going to add oil and emulsify it until it turns into a nice smooth paste. So I'm going to add about 100, 150 grams of mils of oil, and we'll blitz it up again. Okay, so I've added the oil. It's creamy, it's a little bit creamier. Now I would store that in a jar, in a container, really whatever you've got. Top it with the oil if you feel like it needs a little bit more.
What kind of oil, Alex?
Oh yes, very good question, Jamie. So, especially with celery, because it's so light and fresh, intense olive oil is going to be too much. It's going to overpower it. Really so in this one, I did half olive oil and half sunflower oil. Which just kind of softens it and balances out of it. You could do a neutral oil, absolutely. My only advice is to not use coconut oil in these kind of things.
Yeah, under most circumstances.
Yes. So that is delicious. It is really fresh. To eat this kind of pesto, I'm going to give you a couple of options. Very, very yummy on a chicken sandwich.
Yum.
Very nice in a salad dressing, perhaps again for steamed potatoes or a potato salad. Yeah. I reckon it would be nice with fish or on a fish burger as well. You could use it as a dip.
Yes.
So you could add something creamy, perhaps a little mayonnaise, a little sour
as a dip.
Have you? And how did that go?
Big hit.
Received
Big
well.
hit.
Excellent. No one could believe it was a celery leaf. So yes, experiment with this. It's a different flavour to the basil pesto, but it's lighter and fresher as well. Really easy to do. I reckon that's going to last for at least a week. You will eat it before anything happens to it.
And again, a really quick meal to have a jar of a pesto in the fridge means that like Wednesday night you're like, what's for dinner? Yeah. It's pesto.
You kind of sorted. Yeah. Grilled bit of fish and that. I think everyone will be very happy. So we've stored our vegetables. We have the pickled celery. We also have our celery leaf pesto. Next off the bat, I wanted to talk to you about when you have let things get very tired.
Yes.
For some weeks we're very, very good.
Yes.
And some weeks we're not very good because
we're
overwhelmed and we're tired. So you buy that huge celery and you kick it into the fridge. So sometimes your celery does get really tired, and there is no need to be ashamed of that. We've come up with a recipe which is crazy delicious. Full hero of the celery stalks. I don't know if you can see how delicious.
See that beautifully.
It's
very glossy.
Yes, really yummy. Glossy is the word. This is a braised celery. I think in the book it is called the best thing to do with Thai celery, perhaps. And it is. It really is. Surprisingly delicious. So, some butter and a little bit of oil in the pan. If you are dairy-free, just go for the oil. The celery goes in. I just want everyone to notice how I've cut that celery on an angle. Very handsome.
Nice.
Please go with some nice angles when you're chopping vegetables. Your celery goes in. If your celery was particularly stringy, you would take off some of those stringy bits. Otherwise, if you can't be bothered, just in it goes. Pinch of black pepper, pinch of salt. Let it saute for about 5 minutes.
On a lowish heat?
I'm going to say medium. Okay. Medium low. Let that kind of just get a little bit soft and start to brown a little bit.
Okay.
Then we're going to add half a cup of liquid. Stock would be the best thing to add. Beef stock, amazing. It gets really rich and glossy. Chicken stock would be nice. I would be happy for you to vegetable stock. If all else fails, use water or a little wine and just add a little bit more salt in there as well. The lid goes on. We let that sort of stew is not the right word, braise perhaps, for another 5 minutes until all the liquid has evaporated. Then it's going to be glossy. That's why how it gets that nice shiny look. Yes. But you do want the celery to keep its shape. It's very soft. Yeah. It's tender, but it's not mush, basically. Yeah. You could top that with some nuts. You could top that with parsley or even celery leaves.
Oh,
for the full celery experience.
Everything celery.
Yes, I serve this with if I'm roasting a chicken.
Yeah.
It's particularly delicious. It's very nice if you're making a chickpea or a grain salad.
Yeah.
Nice warm, kind of wintry
I
salad.
put it through salads quite a lot.
Yeah. And it's really good as well. Also equally good with grilled fish as well. So it's a versatile one. That probably used about 3 or 4 stalks.
Okay.
And we will happily eat that for lunch.
Yeah, a good one for the very last thing to do.
Yeah,
So-
and so you've done all your lovely
Yeah.
things, and then you've got a little bit left over. It's gotten tired.
It's the whole
Go for
life
it.
cycle of
It's
the
the whole
celery.
cycle of the celery, exactly. So I guess what I wanted to show you that we have that whole bunch of celery is gone.
Yeah.
It's stored, it's turned into pesto, it's pickled, and then you've got a delicious dish out of it as well. The Use It All book covers ingredients in this way, so it's kind of how we tackle all the ingredients, right?
Mm.
And it's the way that we think we need to start shopping and cooking, and it's made me be a better cook, I reckon. It's
Yes,
made me be a
definitely.
more creative cook, and honestly nothing really goes in the bin anymore.
No, but it's also it is fuss free. It doesn't. I think sometimes when people think running a sustainable home kitchen is going to be this very
Yes.
difficult, maybe like bordering on neurotic project.
Arduous task.
Yeah.
And you're gonna have to stay home, you can't go to work
Yeah,
because you've got to
yeah,
do all
it
of
is,
this.
but it's not. It's really fuss free. It's very doable. You often maybe, like you have said, doing some quick pickling at the same time as making a bolognese.
Yeah.
And everything's kind of and using storage, and it's very manageable.
Yeah, it's really, really manageable. And I think honestly, it's just about changing your habits.
Yeah.
So you kind of make a decision that you want to throw less away. Start with one thing. You don't need to do everything. You don't need to make cheese and bread and your own sauerkraut. I think this is probably more
Start with
important.
looking after what you buy.
Yeah, and not throwing food away. This book is coming out at the end of September. We are so excited. We think it's a really important book. We think it's a really timely book. Everyone has to be more resourceful in their homes and in their kitchens and in their workplaces as well. We hope that you enjoy it. We hope that it gives you lots of tips and ideas and kind of inspiration to make some different choices at home as well. So yes, it's coming out at the end of September. Keep your eye out for us, and thank you for having us. Jamie wants to just come in and say goodbye one more time.
Thank you, everyone.
Use it all.